All right, welcome back. I'm Paul, and today the lotto barrel is empty again. We just finished the batch up, so we're ready to start in on the next load that we have ready to go for medium grit in the lotto. So this batch, first of all, I always put some water in there when I'm loading them up so they don't bang on each other too much. Plus, everything needs to be wet. I always store my stuff when it's done in coarse grit and water. Some people say to do it, some people say it doesn't matter. And I got it in a watertight container anyway sitting on my bench, so I just put water in it. I figure it don't hurt nothing. So this is one of my favorite pieces of the Wild Horse Picture Jasper that we did in the 12 pound. And I rolled this one for a long time. I'd have to go back and check my archives to see how many weeks it rolled or how many months, because I'm thinking it was in there for a couple of months, because of a couple of spots right there, and they're completely gone. So I'm really excited to polish this piece. I think it's going to turn out really nice. It is absolutely flawless right now. So that's kind of the highlight of this batch. And then I also have this other large one here. That's dry. And then when I get it wet, it looks like that. It's kind of a dark green. It's kind of got some stuff going on. I'm not sure if I want to tumble that one and that. I don't know if I want to have both of those big rocks in there at the same time, but we're going to load the rest of the stuff in there and see how it looks. And I might try to do that one as well. You'll have to forgive me. I've got a little bit of a cough today. This has also got a nice, it's like a river rock that it was pretty well smooth when we found it. And it has the cool lines on it that caught our eye. So that one's ready to go. I don't know. I don't really remember what else is all in this one. I knew it had my big piece of Picture Jasper. Some more pieces of Picture Jasper here. All the same kind of colors. The tan or the browns and the blues and the greenish. All that'll go in there. I got this big piece of quartz. It's kind of got some rust on it. I'm going to polish it, and then I was going to do a little research to see if there's anything you can do to get that yellow rusty color out of there. If you know anything that might work, don't be afraid to shout it out. I'll try about anything. And some more Picture Jasper, and I don't know what this white rock is, but it's all smoothed off and ready to go. We've got a couple pieces of, well, this one's, I believe it's red jasper, I'm not sure. I found it locally and it smoothed off nice. It almost feels a little bit rougher than, like, this is like, I don't know if this is a jasper and agate, but it's like really glassy smooth. This feels just a little bit rougher, but we'll see if it polishes or not. If it doesn't polish, it'll go back in my landscaping. And a couple more pretty good sized pieces of Picture Jasper in here. Those ones are going to look really nice too. They kind of got some lines on that one. All the blues and all that. Those two look really nice also. And let's see, we got this yellow rock that's got this red band going through it. All the way around. We'll see how that turns out. And we've got this piece of chalcedony or agate or whatever you want to call it. It's almost got a little bit of like a waterline look going on there, or maybe a little bit of moss in it. Maybe a little bit of both, but it's looking nice. I think it's going to polish up really nice. And there is some more Picture Jasper. I had a lot of that in a 12-pound barrel that needed a lot of time to get it where I wanted it. So these ones have been sitting ready to go to polish for a while, but we needed to get enough to fill the load. There's one little Botswana agate in there. Ready to go. Let's see. And then there's a bunch of littles. We've got a little jar in my daughter's room that all the littles go in, so I polish all of them. It's kind of a neat little green rock. I think that actually just came out of the 12-pound barrel this week. So it's fresh. And this one's kind of got some whites and reds in it. I think it's an agate. Maybe we'll put a flashlight on it later. It kind of looks like it has some moss in it. And then some more picture jasper. A couple another little piece of chalcedony there. Or agate. I don't know what that is. Nice little round rock. And there's our handful of littles. We'll polish all those up and put it in Melissa's jar. Nothing too special in there that I can see. And I'm thinking from the way our barrel's looking, I always run some ceramic in it anyways to fill it up, help carry the grit. I suppose if I had enough rocks I could try it without, but I've never really had that many. I think we're going to try to put this big rock in there. Big green one. We'll have two pretty good sized ones in there. So, there it is. Those are all the rocks we're going to put in. Now we'll put in some ceramic. When I first bought ceramic, I bought large and small, and it didn't take long at all for my small to be wore down to where it's falling through my colander all the time. So I've recently bought more, and I only bought the large, and I'm going to see how long it takes for that to kind of go down in size. And I'm thinking I really like just having the large in there a little better. I think it's still small enough to carry the grit around and everything. I don't think you need all this little tiny stuff, but I haven't thrown it away as it falls through the colander. It gets thrown away slowly but surely. All right. I'll dump the water out so everything is wet with no standing water, and we'll get everything set up on the Lotto, and we'll get it rolling on the 180-220 or 180-220 medium grit. Okay, we'll get it rolling. And I just want to make sure that with those two large rocks in there, it rolls well. So I'll let it roll for a little bit before I put the grit in to make sure that it's going to roll, because I don't want to have to try to dig something out of there when the grit's all in there. So, and we'll do 2 tablespoons of the grit, and it'll roll for 3 days. Yeah, I think it looks like it's rolling all right. That's what your 180-220 medium grit silicon carbide looks like. I'm sure you've seen it before, unless you're really new to tumbling. Alright, that'll go for 3 days. We'll check the water a few times a day to make sure it stays wet enough, and we'll be back to move it on to the next stage. Our rocks have been going for 3 days in the medium stage, and they kind of dried out on me because I was at work and they didn't get checked for water. It's getting warmer out, and it must be evaporating my water faster. So I added a bunch of water and some Dawn dish soap, and I'm sure they're fine, but they were really gummy. And I actually rinsed them and added some more grit because I have a hard time getting them rolling for a couple days in the medium grit, and I like to roll them enough. So I just dumped them, rinsed them, put them back in wet, and added one more tablespoon of the medium in the middle of my 3 days. So they've actually gone 3 days, and they had a rinse in the middle. So we should be ready to go to pre-polish stage. Nothing's going to change too much in the Lotto Tumble as far as shape goes, and as far as looks go, if I dry them, they're going to be dull, even all the way up to 1,000 on the silicon carbide. They still look dull when they dry, but they look nice when they're wet until you get them polished. Alright, we'll just take kind of a little quick look at them here. Alright, you see our big green one there is looking really nice. And then our large piece of the picture jasper is looking really nice too. We got that piece of quartz and piece of agate, our little striped rock with the lines on it. So I'll go ahead and clean them up a little bit better and clean the barrel a little better, and we will come back when we're loading them on the tumbler, getting the grit ready for the next stage. Alright, the barrel's all clean and the rocks have been washed through well. In the process of washing the rocks, I found this one that felt a little rougher after the coarse grit, and you can see that it has, it's a more, I don't know, porous rock than what I thought it was. And it looked fine before, but now it's got slurry embedded in all those holes or little pits in that rock. So I'm thinking that it's something that won't polish. So we've pulled this one. And we'll see what it looks like when it's all dried up. Maybe I'll do something else with it, but I'm pretty sure it's too porous. It's not like microcrystalline. So it's got grit and slurry stuck in it that won't come out. So I don't think it'll polish. So that one's coming out. But we are ready to go to pre-polish. Will be a half a teaspoon of the pre-polish and a tablespoon of borax. Alright, there's the polish. Or pre-polish, I mean. And the borax. We'll check it a few times a day for the water. And we'll let them go for 3 days. Today the rocks are done in the 500 grit pre-polish. We're going to rinse them and get them back on the tumbler on 1000 grit silicon carbide. I always add a little extra water and some Dawn dish soap before I get ready to rinse them because it helps things rinse off a little easier. And that's why it's so bubbly. There we go. Everything's looking really nice. that's what everything's looking like. Shape and everything hasn't changed. We're just reducing the size of the scratches, which makes them get shiny. They wouldn't be shiny. If I let them get dry, they would still be dull at this point. They're dull all the way up past 1000 grit silicon carbide. They don't actually start to get a shine at all until the polish stage, which is fine. Well, I'm gonna rinse the barrel a little better, wash the rocks a little bit up, wash them up a little better, and we'll be back on the tumbler getting them into the next stage. All right, we're all cleaned up and back on the tumbler. We're ready to move on to 1000 grit silicon carbide. We'll run a half a teaspoon of silicon carbide, 1000 grit, and 1 tablespoon of the borax. And it'll go for 3 days. The borax. And the 1000 grit. Doesn't look much different than the 500 grit, but check the water a few times a day, and we'll let it roll for 3 days, and we'll be back and we'll be ready to clean them up and get them going and polish. All right, after 3 days in the 1000 grit silicon carbide, we rinsed them all off, put them back in the barrel with just borax to burnish the rocks and the barrel so everything's clean and ready to go on to polish. So now everything's back in, all washed, everything's been burnished, and we're ready to go to the polish stage for 3 days. So we'll run a half a teaspoon of the aluminum oxide polish and a tablespoon of borax. That's the borax. And that's what the polish looks like. About like flour. Very fine. And all we'll do is check the water a few times a day to make sure they stay wet enough, and we'll be back with some hopefully shiny rocks. All right, this is everything. It's been, after it came out of polish, I rinsed them and put them back in the barrel with just some borax, and we burnished them for a few hours, and everything's been drying for a day now. So they're all perfectly dry. And everything turned out pretty nice. Everything's got a really nice shine on it. It wasn't a very big batch. We had these 2 larger rocks that I haven't done a lot of the large rocks like that in the lotto yet. Like, I've had 1 big one per load, but this is the first time I've had 2 larger rocks. And a couple other ones are pretty good size, so that I didn't know how it would roll. So I had a lot of filler in there. A lot of ceramic media. So we'll take a look at a few of them. I'm going to roll them off the side so my camera will zoom better. A lot of littles in this batch. We've got a little jar that we put all of our littles in. So that's going to start filling up. We'll save the best for last, but this is a piece of the Wild Horse Picture Jasper. We've already done one batch of this, but we had some left over in our 12-pound barrel if you watch our weekly videos. So all of this stuff came out of that 12-pound barrel. There's some of the Picture Jasper, and this is a cool little, you'll see a lot of the rocks with the white lines on them in the bands. I wouldn't say bands, I guess, but just the white lines on them. They stood out more before we polished it, but it still looks pretty cool. It polished up nice. I didn't know how that one would turn out. And we've got a few other pieces of this Wild Horse Picture Jasper. They're nice pieces. They all have the brown and the blue, and everything's shined up real nice. And then here's another one. This has got more of the browns and reds in it, but looks pretty good. No blue on that one. This is something locally we found. Just yellow rock with that red band going through it all the way around. It's got that red band. Polished up nice, though I don't know what it is. Another local find. Nothing too exciting. This is a piece of, I think it's some kind of, it's chalcedony for sure. I've done some research recently, and they said that jasper and agate are possibly chalcedony, but jasper is no transparency and agate has some semi-transparency or transparent from one of the sources I looked at. So this would be, I think it's more of an agate. It has some transparency to it, but it turned out pretty cool. Those white dots you can't feel. They're just there. This is a piece of agate. You can see that it has transparency, and it almost has like a water line through it right here. So that turned out really nice. And we've got this piece of quartz. I've read some things where they say you can get the iron staining off of them and make them clean up and more white. I'm not sure if that would work on this, but I'm going to do a little research and see if we can't get some of that out of there. I don't know if they'll come off or not, but that's one of the next projects of that one now that it's shined up. So one of the big rocks on this one is this big green one. And it polished okay. It's pretty nice, but it's just a little bit cloudier than some of the other stuff. I actually considered, I have some cerium oxide. I used aluminum oxide polish on this batch, but I might try to do this again with some cerium oxide and see if it polishes up a little better. And it's not bad. I'm pretty happy with it, but it's got that one bad spot right there. But I figured we would have rolled it in our 12-pound barrel for months to get that out of there. So we polished it, and it turned out nice. And then this was our big piece of Wild Horse Picture Jasper. And this is definitely one in our favorites jar. It polished up really good. I'm pretty happy with it. It had one spot right there that we couldn't get rid of for the longest time. I bet we rolled this in coarse grit for at least 2 months. It could have been longer. I'd have to go back and watch my videos to figure out how long it was in there. But it was in there a long time. So it turned out really cool. I'm pretty happy with it. And other than that, we have some more Wild Horse Picture Jasper. Or Picture Jasper. The place I bought it from called it Wild Horse, but I don't know if that's just a different breed of Picture Jasper or what. So that's all those. We did have one small Botswana in there, and it turned out nice. If it focuses good, I hope. And this is another one that we watched a long time on our 12-pound barrel. It has white in it and almost has a couple of spots that have like a blue tint to it. I had a flashlight on it, and it has transparency in places. It's kind of mossy, like a moss agate. Like in this area, it's kind of moss. So it turned out nice. And other than that, we just have all of our littles. I guess I can do one of these. That's essentially the rest of the batch. So I would say, as a whole, it was a success. Everything turned out nice. Our 2 large rocks turned out really nice. And we've got one to try on cerium oxide to see if it turns out any different. I've heard that it works out well using cerium oxide on obsidian, and I do have some Davis Creek obsidian that I've ordered that we're going to start rolling here pretty soon, so I'm going to use the cerium oxide on that. So I will get some pictures of a few things, and I think that's about all we have on this one. Thanks for watching.